Hey guys, so I know the lighting is kind of weird and my voice is a little weird because I think I'm getting sick, but I wanted to talk about something today that's been on my mind lately that's kind of come up in the MBTI community again. Um, and this has come up various places online and seems to be this sort of rampant misconception that sensors are not deep, intuitives are deep. Sensors are shallow because they only focus on surface level details, and intuitives are deep because they go beyond surface level details and they look past what we can see towards deeper truths. Okay, let's unpack this a little bit. Is this true? Well, first of all, we need to think about what we mean by the word deep. So I think people have lots of different ways of defining this and ways of thinking about it. People mean a lot of different things when they say that someone is deep. For example, you could be someone who really thinks about things and processes things deeply, spends a lot of time alone, um, thinking and pondering uh, deeper truths or your own emotions or exploring the complexities of something that you're interested in. It could mean insightful, it could mean visionary, it could mean you have a wide range of eclectic hobbies and interests. It could even mean, in a sort of stereotypical sense, that you have certain kinds of interests rather than others. For example, maybe you like to read and maybe you don't like sports, and maybe you think sports are shallow because it's just throwing around a ball or whatever. So, I'll come back to that particular example a little bit later. Um, so what I really think is that you, with this kind of broad way of thinking about the word deep, you could make arguments for any type being deep or shallow. In some circles, there's a stereotype that introverts are deep because they spend lots of time alone and lots of time thinking by themselves, and extroverts are shallow because they crave lots of stimulation and excitement and never take the time to self-reflect or anything like that, which, by the way, neither of those statements is necessarily true, but you can make that argument. You could also make the argument that extroverts are deep because they enjoy getting to know people on a deeper level, and maybe introverts spend all their time alone and don't get to know anybody on a deeper level, which, by the way, that's not true, but you could make that argument, right? You can make the argument that intuitives are deep because they focus on these, like, underlying, like, principles or concepts or whatever, and sensors are shallow because they only focus on certain surface level details. Um, you could make the argument that intuitives are shallow because they spend all their time focusing on pie in the sky possibilities that might never happen. And you can make the argument that sensors are deep because they deeply ponder the past and reflect about that and really deeply or are really deeply in tune with their environments, their surroundings. You could make the argument that thinkers are deep because they think deeply about systems and are good at problem solving or whatever, and feelers are shallow because they don't think about those things. Or you could make the argument that feelers are deep because they have deep, complex emotions that they are very in tune with, and thinkers are not in tune with their emotions at all. Again, none of these statements are necessarily true. I know many thinkers with deep emotions who ponder their emotions regularly. I know many feelers who have complex understandings of certain topics that they can, logically piece things together and really think deeply on the complexities of um, certain things that you would maybe only initially associate with thinkers. So my point is that all of the types have their depth, their relative areas of strength and depth and weakness, and also that people can develop surprising strengths in areas that might not be their natural, that they might not be naturally good at, but they can develop opposing strengths. I don't think it would be uncommon to say that a lot of older ISJs, for instance, have really well developed NE. Or on the flip side, ENPs developing their SI. Like, you hear this kind of stuff all the time. And I think people can really surprise you. And I think that we just need to stop stereotyping people, because I think you can make an argument for any type being deep or shallow. And I also think that, if you haven't taken the time to get to know somebody and you think they're shallow and you write them off because you think they're shallow, that's a incredibly shallow thing to do, because you're not actually getting to know them on a deeper level. You just think, oh, this person doesn't fit the mold of what I see as deep, and so I'm going to write them off because maybe maybe they dress like the average person and they like sports, and you're like, ooh, I'm a more creative, artistic person and I like to read, philosophical things, and what could I possibly have in common with this person? And so you just write them off. And um, I would say if you consider yourself someone deep, maybe use some of that depth to try to get to know somebody who doesn't immediately appeal to all of your sensibilities. Like, I don't get this whole let's just write people off and, say they have no depth. Like, depth is by nature kind of hidden. You think of like an iceberg, and you've got the tip of the iceberg that you can see, and then you've got everything else below the surface, and that's what depth is. You don't see it immediately. So I am mystified by uh, statements like, well, I don't really get to know sensors because they're not deep. Well, um, okay. I don't really know what to tell you. Um, I also would like to just say that while I do think everybody genuinely has depth, even if they're not aware of it, I also want to be careful about associating depth with being primarily, or depth with being a good thing. Like, I would say it usually is, but I don't think that it's inherently better than, like, maybe you don't consider yourself a super deep thinker. Like, I think that's fine. Maybe you're somebody who prefers taking action in the moment rather than endlessly analyzing all the possibilities, or, getting stuck in analysis paralysis. Like, that's great. Like, for those of you who don't do that, I applaud you, and I want to be more like you, because I'm constantly second guessing um a lot of the things that I do, and it's annoying. So if you're the kind of person who takes action and just tries things and sees what works, like, good for you. Please keep doing that, because we need more of that. And I don't think that it's necessarily, I think sometimes when people really extol the virtues of being deep, um, we can really ignore the consequences that come along with, like, idealizing being this, like, deep thinker. And again, I mean, those two things don't necessarily have to be opposites. Like, you can be a person who takes action who's also a very deep thinker. So obviously there's a lot of leeway here, and it's not really as cut and dry as I'm making it sound, but I want to make the point that, one, people have lots of different ideas of depth. Two, everybody has depth. Any type can have depth. You can make an argument for anybody being deep or shallow. So I would say choose to see the depth in people. Choose to get to know them better. Three, don't judge someone before you know them, because depth is by nature something that you have to uncover. And four, being deep might not necessarily actually be better. So I think that's all I've got for today. Yeah, that's it. Peace.